to Church Under the Sea, I think I can safely say you're not alone. Volunteers have spent countless hours making this building ready for VBS. They've done a terrific job. And the week that follows today is an exciting time where I think like 130-something kids, record-breaking year for our VBS. That's right. It's going to be an awesome time where we can just pour out love and truth into the lives of these little kids, and it's just going to be an exciting week. And I'm sure our children's minister would love it if I told you there's always more room. If you've got a neighbor or a grandchild or a niece or a nephew, bring them on. Even if it's just one day a week, we would love to have as many kids as we can join us this week. I also want you to take out your cell phone. I know it's weird being told that in church. It's okay, you're not going to get in trouble. Take out your cell phone, take a selfie. It is officially selfie day. And what I want to do is, with you guys, take a group selfie, which I one time called a groupie in front of a bunch of students, and that didn't go over so well. So everybody squeeze in and say, "Happy Selfie Day!" Perfect. Thank you guys for playing along. While you have your phone out, post that to Instagram or Snapchat or wherever you like to do that kind of thing. Also go to your app store and search for Wildwood Christian Church. You can download our brand new app that we're very excited to have released last week. It's a lot of good stuff in that app, and you can use it to follow along with the sermon. You can use it to look at announcements and all that stuff. You can tap on Numbers 22, and it'll take you right there. You don't have to flip through pages and stuff like that. If you are also one of those techno wizard people, you can use it to fill out your connection card. But if you don't have the app downloaded, everybody take out your paper bulletin, who has it, and we'll all rip this up together. It's a nice like ASMR thing. It just feels good to do it all together. 1, 2, 3. Oh, perfect. I love it. Fill that out. It'll help us. It will help us minister to your family better if you would do that for us, or do it online on the app. It's all integrated. Synergy, RAM, other techno words and stuff. I want you to turn to the people around you, talk for just a minute, tell them what the first video game you ever played was. Some of you guys might be dating yourself, it's okay. Go ahead. First video game you ever played. Games on your smartphone count. Pong. That's good, that's good. Pokemon. Does anybody care to share with the class? It's okay if you date yourself a little bit. I heard some people saying Pong, Pac-Man, that's a good one. I heard some Pokemon for the younger kids out there. I've never really been much of a gamer. I never really got into it. I'm the guy, if I'm playing like Halo or some kind of shoot 'em up game, I'm like stuck in the corner spinning around and jumping because I can't figure out where I'm supposed to point. And everybody kills me because it's the easy thing to do and it's fun and they rack up points. That's me. That's just my lot in life. I've come to accept it. I'm okay with it. But I can really appreciate the games I grew up playing. We had a Nintendo Entertainment System, the original NES, the good stuff. We also had a Sega Genesis, and I loved spending time playing Sonic the Hedgehog and Star Fox and all the good games. I actually trashed my brother's NES playing Super Mario Brothers because this is the thing you little kids don't understand today. You used to not be able to save your progress. I know, like mind-blowing, right? To the kids out there. So I would just leave it on like 6-7 days at a time because I would get really, really far and I wouldn't want to like start over. It's just terrible, terrible. And so eventually it just gave up. It said, I'm out. Peace. And my brother has never forgiven me for it. So I also had this thing called a Game & Watch. And you guys might remember this if you've been around for a while. It's sort of like an early predecessor to the Game Boy, but you couldn't like change out cartridges and play a different game. You had to buy a whole new Game & Watch. This particular one is Donkey Kong, and I had it. I think I probably stole it from my dad, found it in his closet somewhere, but that's just how I roll. I stole it, and it was my first taste of Donkey Kong, and I hated it. It was hard. I wasn't good at it. Not like I'm really good at any video games now, but I couldn't stand it because it was so difficult. Granted, I was little and very uncoordinated, but I hated Donkey Kong because of it. Now, we're all pretty familiar with the story of Donkey Kong. There's a gorilla who has stolen the damsel in distress. Her name is Pauline. Only trouble is, Pauline is already spoken for. And I know what you're thinking. That is Super Mario's girlfriend. Her name is Princess Peach, and he's a plumber. You would be wrong. Back in the day, he was called Jumpman, which is like the most descriptive, anticlimactic superhero name ever. All he did was jump. And he wasn't a plumber, he was a carpenter. Right? Crazy. So, Jumpman is determined to get his precious Pauline back, and he climbs up the construction tower, which makes a lot more sense now that you know he's a carpenter, and he finally gets to the top level, only to have Pauline snatched away, and Donkey Kong climbs ever higher up the ladder. And there's really no end to this game. If you were lucky enough to make it to screen 117, which is obviously level 22, you would run into this Donkey Kong kill screen. And there was a limitation in the 8-bit hardware that would result in an integer overflow, and you would just die randomly. The timer broke, and you would just die. It became like a badge of honor. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, that's like way over here. Integer, 8-bit, it just doesn't make sense. And some of you guys are like, I want more, give me more. That's all I got, I'm sorry. There really was no end today, but Donkey Kong was revolutionary in a lot of ways. It was the first game to have a story designed first, this love triangle between a gorilla, a carpenter, and Pauline, and then have the gameplay developed around that. It was also, everywhere else it was just the story tacked on after the game was programmed, just so that it was not as boring. And it really had no end. And conflict, this kind of conflict, drives almost every single video game that's ever been made. There's always some conflict. In fact, movies, books, TV shows, there's always conflict. We are drawn towards conflict for our entertainment stuff, for the things we watch, the things we encounter in our daily lives. Conflict really speaks to us because we experience conflict in our daily lives. Today we're talking about a conflict that Israel faces. Actually, two conflicts. One is the result of an external threat, this external conflict that comes at us, and the other is the result of Israel's own internal threat, internal conflict. So if you have your Bible, pull it out, open it to Numbers chapter 22. If you don't have your Bible but you have your app, you can tap on that and it should take you there. If it's broken, that's my fault, I apologize. Or you can use the Bible under the chair in front of you, Numbers chapter 22. It's on page 112 in there if you're so inclined. Now this story might be a little bit familiar to some of you guys, and that's okay. This story takes place at a very pivotal moment in Israel's history. See, a long time ago they rebelled against God. They were on the precipice of this promised land, and they said, I'm too scared, I don't want any of this. And so God cursed them to wander in the desert for 40 years. Now, by the time we get to Numbers chapter 22, most of that time has passed. So the older generation is starting to die out. Sorry, guys. The younger generation is starting to rise up and take the reins, and they're actually seeing some military successes within their army. And so they're getting a little bit confident. They're starting to really depend on this God character that they have had this love-hate relationship with for so long, and the people around them are afraid. Numbers chapter 22, and we're going to start in verse 1. By the way, we're covering a lot of this story. We're not going to read like every word. I'll leave out some of the thes and ands. We'll make it shorter. I'm just kidding. We won't read that much. Then the people of Israel traveled to the plains of Moab and camped east of the Jordan River, across from Jericho. Balak, son of Zippor, the Moabite king, had seen everything the Israelites did to the Amorites, and when the people of Moab saw how many Israelites there were, they were terrified. Now, my New Living Translation says they were terrified, but I like the way the New English Translation says it. The Moabites were sick with fear. Have you ever been sick with fear? You see the police lights in your rearview mirror, and you're not sure why. You narrowly miss that accident, or you see somebody really badly injured right next to you or right in front of you, and you just feel like your stomach is about to jump out of your mouth. That's where the Moabites were, terrified and desperate. So they hire this dude named Balaam. And some of you guys might recognize that name. Balaam, Oh man, my notes are not turning well, sorry. Balak, the king, conspires with the leaders next door, and they hire this dude named Balaam, who's known as this spiritual guy. And they say, hey, come on over, guys. Come on over, guy. We're going to have this curse party or something. I want you to curse these people because they are a threat to me and my kingdom. And I want you to curse them so that they can't succeed and they can't do whatever they're trying to do. Because they realize, Moab and Midian realize that there is something going on with this Israel crew. There's something that we can't overcome this with physical force, so we're going to resort to spiritual force. So they hire this dude named Balaam, who's basically like a wizard, not like Gandalf or Dumbledore. That's the name. So they say, come over here, lay the smack down on these people. And Balaam actually knows that these people of Israel are in this this monogamous relationship with this God that they call Yahweh. And so Balaam knows, okay, polite to, talk to this God guy and see what the deal is. And if you skip down to verse 12, Balaam has asked God, I want to curse these people, what do you think? But God told Balaam, do not go with them. You are not to curse these people, for they have been blessed. The next morning, Balaam got up and told Balak's officials, go on home, the Lord will not let me go with you. So the Moabite officials returned to King Balak and reported, Balaam refused to come with us. Now, if I were Balak, I'd be a little bit frustrated. Remember, they're desperate. They're scared. They know that these people represent a real threat to the Moabites. And so he one-ups himself. He sends another message back with promising more riches and more honor and more profit. And Balaam starts out with this pious sort of routine. I can only say what God tells me to say. I promise. I'm just a servant of the Lord. But then money enters the picture, and he kind of changes his tune. I'm sure none of us have ever changed our tune for money. Here's a side note here. Balaam calls this God Yahweh, the Lord my God. And some people try to make a big deal out of that, like he was really pious, but I think that's more just like he's referring to him as a title. Like we might talk about Prince Harry, Prince Charles, Prince William, or whatever. They're not our prince, right? We're just calling that because that's what they're called, Prince Harry. That's what he's using here. He's using the title that the people referred to this God as, the Lord my God. Anyway, talk about money, he changes his tune. And God's answer to him is a little bit strange, a little bit puzzling. Verse 20, that night God came to Balaam and told him, since these men have come for you, get up and go with them, but do only what I tell you to do. So the next morning Balaam got up, saddled his donkey, and started off with the Moabite officials. But God was angry that Balaam was going. Now it sort of seems like God is acting like just about every politician that you've ever seen on TV, flip-flopping his answer. First he says, you can go with them, and then he's not too happy about it. I think what's going on is that God knows Balaam's motives. He knows that he only pushed the envelope, he only asked the second time, he only went back to God because of his greed, because he knows that this is a lucrative opportunity, and he knows that he can make a good profit. Not profit like telling the future, profit like cash money. He's after that cheddar. And his answer basically amounts to, I've already answered you, but if you insist, be my guest, I suppose. That's basically what God has answered him. If you're going to be insistent, if you're going to be so motivated by your greed and your power hunger, then go ahead, but you better pay attention. I know I've been like Balaam. I've had impure motives. I've had improper drives behind the actions that I do. I've gone back to God a second, third, fourth time because he gave me an answer that I didn't like. Have you? What are your motives for the things that you do? Are you seeking more honor, more money, more power,